Amber traced her finger along the crack in the dining room floor, feeling the familiar wobble of loose boards beneath her touch. "This spot has always bothered me," she said, glancing up at Stephen as he entered with 2 mugs of coffee. "Just add it to our renovation list," Stephen replied, setting her mug on the window ledge. 3 years in this Victorian home had taught them patience. They had purchased it for an unbelievable price. The previous owner, a reclusive elderly man, had practically given it away. The bones were good, as Amber always insisted, but everything else needed work. Today marked the official start of their renovations. The contractors would arrive tomorrow for the major structural work, but they had decided to handle some demolition themselves. Every dollar saved would stretch their modest budget further. "I think I want to start with this section," Amber said, tapping the creaky floorboard with her boot. "I swear there's something wrong underneath. It doesn't just squeak, it feels hollow." Stephen knelt beside her, pressing his palm against the wood. "You might be right." He retrieved a crowbar from their tool pile and wedged it under the edge of the board. With a sharp crack, the wood splintered upward. Instead of the expected floor joists and foundation, a dark void gaped beneath them. "What the hell?" Stephen muttered, leaning closer. He grabbed his phone and switched on the flashlight, illuminating what appeared to be a small chamber beneath their floor, not just a gap in the construction, but a deliberate space. "That can't be normal," Amber whispered, peering into the darkness. "Floors don't just have empty cavities underneath them." The beam of light caught something metallic in the shadows. Stephen adjusted the angle, squinting. "There's something down there." Without hesitation, Amber rolled up her sleeve and reached into the opening. Her fingers brushed against something cold and smooth. "It's metal," she said, gripping the object. "Heavy, too. Help me pull it out." Together, they maneuvered a dust-covered metal box from the space and set it on their floor with a solid thud. It was a safe, old-fashioned with a dial combination lock and no visible keyhole. "How do we open it?" Amber asked, running her fingers over the tarnished dial. Stephen examined the safe carefully. "We could try to cut through it with the angle grinder, but that might damage whatever's inside." They were so engrossed in their discovery that neither noticed the figure watching them from the side yard until a voice called out, "I wouldn't do that if I were you." They turned to find their neighbor standing at their open window. Though they had lived next door to him for years, their interactions had been limited to occasional waves and polite nods. Wilbert Reed was an older man, probably in his 70s, with a perpetual serious expression that had always made Amber slightly uneasy. "Mr. Reed," Stephen said, straightening up, "we're just doing some renovation work." "That's not what it looks like from here," Wilbert replied, his eyes fixed on the safe. "That belonged to my Aunt Lillian. She lived in this house during the war." Amber and Stephen exchanged glances. "You knew about this?" Amber asked. Wilbert's expression softened slightly. "May I come in? There's a story here you should know." 10 minutes later, Wilbert sat at their kitchen table, staring at the safe with a mixture of wonder and apprehension. "Aunt Lillian was always secretive," he explained. "During the occupation, she worked with the resistance. This house," he paused, looking around. "This house wasn't just her home. It was a way station." "For what?" Stephen asked. "For whom?" Wilbert corrected. "And for what they carried." He reached into his pocket and withdrew a small notebook. "After she died, I found this. I never knew what it meant until now." He opened to a page with a series of numbers written in faded ink. "Try 1842-7. Stephen knelt by the safe and carefully turned the dial. Right to 18, left to 42, right to 7. The mechanism clicked and the door swung open with a groan of metal. Inside was a small wooden box, its surface carved with strange symbols. Below them were the letters TBYD7. "Her code," Wilbert whispered. "Treasury bonds, year D, 7th series. She never told anyone what it meant. We thought she had become paranoid in her old age." Amber gently lifted the box from the safe and placed it on the table. Inside was a black and white photograph of a woman standing beside a large oak tree, the same tree that still stood in their backyard. 4 men in dark suits surrounded her, their expressions grim and determined. "That's Lillian," Wilbert said softly. "And those men were resistance fighters. They transported valuables seized from Nazi officers, gold, jewelry, currency, things that could fund their operations." Beneath the photograph was an old iron key with an intricate handle, Amber held it up. "What does this open?" Wilbert took a deep breath. "There's more to this house than you know. The original blueprints showed a basement level that was sealed off after the war. Lillian insisted it remain that way." "A basement?" Stephen repeated. "But there's no access point." "The pantry," Wilbert said, "under the floor." They moved to the small pantry off the kitchen. Stephen and Amber removed the shelving units and rolled back the linoleum. Beneath it was a wooden floor that appeared identical to the rest of the house. But when Stephen knocked on it, the sound was unmistakably hollow. With careful precision, they pried up the boards to reveal a metal hatch with a rusted keyhole. Amber inserted the key, and with a grinding sound, the lock turned. Stephen pulled the hatch open, revealing a narrow staircase leading into darkness. The three of them descended slowly, flashlights illuminating the way. At the bottom was a small room with stone walls and a dirt floor. In the center stood a large wooden chest, bound with iron and secured with a heavy padlock. "TBY D7, Amber whispered, pointing to the same symbols carved into the wood. The key fit perfectly. As the lock clicked open, Wilbert's hands trembled. "All these years, I thought they were just stories." Inside the chest, wrapped in oilcloth, were bars of gold, bundles of outdated currency, and jewelry in small velvet pouches. Nestled among them was a sealed envelope addressed simply, "To my kin." Wilbert opened it with reverent care. The letter inside, written in faded ink on yellowed paper, told the story of Lillian's war years, her work with the resistance, the valuables they recovered, and her promise to keep them safe until they could be properly distributed. "She died before she could tell anyone," Wilbert said, his voice breaking. "She carried this secret alone. In the days that followed, they had the items authenticated and appraised. The total value approached 300,000 euros, a fortune hidden beneath their floorboards for decades. "It's yours," Amber told Wilbert when the appraisal was complete. "Your aunt wanted you to have it." But Wilbert shook his head. "Lillian wanted this to do good, and without you two, it would still be buried beneath the floorboards." He insisted on dividing the find equally between them and several war charities that supported families affected by the occupation. The renovations continued, but with a new sense of purpose. They restored the house with respect for its history, creating a hidden display case for Lillian's photograph and letter in the rebuilt dining room. The basement was properly finished and became Stephen's study, where he eventually wrote a book about Lillian's story, changing names and locations to protect the privacy of those involved. As for Amber, she became fascinated with the house's history and began researching other homes in their neighborhood, discovering a network of similar way stations that had operated during the war. Their relationship with Wilbert transformed from distant neighborliness to genuine friendship. Sunday dinners became a tradition, where they would sit beneath the old oak tree that had witnessed so much history and share stories of the past, while building memories for the future. The house, once cold and plain, now hummed with warmth and purpose. Its secrets had been revealed, its story honored, and its legacy continued through their lives, a testament to courage, duty, and the unexpected treasures that sometimes lie beneath the surface.